Welcome to webinar 39, and it's for the 2020 Kentucky Derby. So let me go back up. I wanted to point a couple things out and that I hope will help as we go on. In this particular race, especially since there's a number of new subscribers, I wanted to point out that the optimal odds, the three of them have 0.80, and so that means all three of them have about an equal chance of winning. And one thing in this particular first race, the RSR on horse number 1 is 85. And so that is extremely strong. And normally that horse will win this race about 85 times out of 100. The thing that makes this race interesting is that there's three others that are in the 70s. So from an RSR perspective, this is a very strong race. Now, I wanted to give everybody a thought for when they're interpreting these numbers. And I wanted to point to horse number 3. And the E-score is a 5. And so what I wanted to point out is that horses like the Mom 1A, Mom 2A, and Mom 3A should represent a similar pattern to the E-score. So horse number 3 has mostly the Mom 3A is in green. So you can see the Mom 2-3 is minus 5.6. The Mom 3A is the minus 2.3 in green. So that horse is running a little late, it looks like, compared to the E-score of 5. So where this is really important, for example, is a horse who looks like the E-score says they're a closer, say horse number 5, if that horse were to go to the lead, its chances of winning are very, very low. They almost never win, especially closers who try and go out early. So, and in this case, horse number 5, you can see in the middle, Mom 2A has minus 4.8, and then Mom 3A is minus 2.9, which is fine for a closer. It's making its move in the middle of the race, and it's continuing throughout the race. So now, horse number 1, for example, is green all the way across. So that horse, that's really good. You know, but this race is so open, you know, you don't want to go with the favorite, even though if it wins or whatever. But, you know, the fishing score is also 1 because all the RSRs are so high and the optimal odds are all, you know, pretty low. So in the one sense, you don't think you'll get a good price in this race, especially there's only 5 horses. But there is opportunity. Never just overlook the race if you can help it. But I wanted to introduce the concept of trying to match the E with the running, what the numbers show, what the Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A show, and what the rest of the scores show, because you want it to make sense. So, is there any questions?
Yeah, I got a question for you, Gary.
Sure, go ahead.
On the race today at Del Mar, it actually just went off. One of the horses had an RSI of 98. Its optimal odds was $3.50, so 7-2. The horse underneath him was 80 cents, and his RSI was, you know, it was probably like in the 70s. I mean, right. If you have a 98 RSI, wouldn't the optimal odds be very low? I mean, it would seem that an optimal odds of 7-2 on a 98 RSI would seem, you know, a little off.
Well, no, they're not off, because here's the thing. Here's why I think my ratings are so important, and you have to really interpret them, because optimal odds is totally separate and calculated totally separate. It's an algorithm, and you know, depending on what kind of race it was, it could have 70 factors in it. There's just a lot of different factors. So optimal odds is one algorithm, and it's absolutely independent of RSR. So,
Okay.
and RSR is independent totally of optimal odds. So, and virtually every other number here is independent from all the other numbers. So,
Okay.
so yeah, that's how it works. So if RSR was 98, which I've never seen, I didn't play today. I'm actually in California today, and if optimal odds would have been like 20 cents, then that's really strong. But in that
Right.
case, it shows you that there's some risk to it.
Okay.
So,
So
is there
it's
any
just
other?
independent.
What's that?
Gary,
I said everything is independent.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And let me go to race number 2. And one of the things, I just wanted to point out a couple other things that are kind of general comments. But tomorrow's the Kentucky Derby, and historically, that's one of the very best days of the year to bet. And from everything I've heard from different tracks and different officials, this has been a pretty good year, even though there's nobody in attendance at most places. The tracks are doing well, and Saratoga's been doing well. And, so there's every reason to believe that tomorrow will be a tremendously good betting day. And the other thing I also want to point out, since the tracks are doing well, people are betting online or however they can bet. So, it looks like it's going to be a good fall. As long as spectators aren't going there, they're still betting online. As long as there's not much in the way of other sports, it depends what happens with football. But this could be a really good fall. So, just keep your eyes open. It's been a good summer. I hope everybody's had a good summer. And I've hit some real bombers this summer. At any rate, race 2, tomorrow at Churchill, there's a lot of weak races. And race 2 is a good example. C1 and C2 are all red. And then you can see that, like Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A, they're not strong, but they're not all red. Like a lot of times I say it's a real weak race if they're all red. But C1 and C2 are all red. And you see those, there's not even anybody in the 90s in C1 or C2. So anybody can win. And I have a strong tendency to go with early speed in this kind of race. And, you can see horse number 1 in this second race has, it's an E of 6. And then going on what I was saying earlier, it's going to be, looks like it's probably going to be at the back of the pack in for Mom 1A, it's 14.5. But then you see it makes that good move in the middle. And of course, that just brings it into range of everybody else if the numbers hold up. And then it could flatten out since Mom 3A is yellow. So, that's always the danger if these horses are close. And, but optimal odds has it at 80 cents and RSR 74, which is also pretty good. So, we'll have to see what odds it goes off at tomorrow. But, be on the alert for, for example, horse number 3, but that's 0 on Mom 1A. And you see here in this race that the horses distinguish themselves at Mom 2, 3. Almost all of them have that green. But there's a really good chance the race will be over by then. So, you'll have to keep an eye on the odds, but keep in mind that there's like no speed in this race. Horse number 3 is the speed, it looks like. Horse number 3 has an E of 1. So it's almost certainly going to get the lead.
Gary,
Yeah.
it's Joe Denti. How are you?
Hi, Joe.
The BL1s in a race like this, I think, are pretty strong. I find out these weak races, any BL1 horses that are negative are usually going to be out front early. and it's
Yeah.
a weak race. A lot of these horses usually can't close to get you. They really don't
Right.
have any late. So, in my opinion, for betting them, I think anything that's negative in the BL1 at a price, probably the right bet, probably the Ford. I think their
Yeah.
total energy is there also.
Yeah.
And the
All right.
Ford's got an I8, which
Right.
helps.
Right.
So put it all together. Find out that the last seminar you did was probably one of the most interesting ones for me, because I really got into the BL1 more than I usually did, and I think it's very effective.
Well, good on.
That's where I start at BL1, and I take it
Well,
from there.
you have to. You absolutely have to, because like last webinar, I was trying to point out, where do horses distinguish themselves? And in this particular race, it's Mom 1 and Mom 1 2. It's BL1. There's 3 horses. In MT, there's 3 horses. So you have to look where a horse has the chance to distinguish itself. And horse number 3, it doesn't have MT. It's got a bad MT, but it's got a good BL1. And then
Right.
it's still green in BL2, MS, BL3.
Right.
So
Right.
it's got the high total energy.
Right.
So it's got a good chance to go wire to wire. The C1 is horrendous, but you just don't know how the race is going to go. And whole object of Winnermetrics, if you have good odds over optimal odds, you have an advantage.
Right. Right. That C1 on the 3 horse is only a 61. So
Yeah.
that's extremely, extremely weak. That makes me a little frightened.
Well, chances are, being that low, the horse, something might have happened last race. That's really low. So,
Yeah.
so you got to get good odds tomorrow. That's the only thing. When
Right.
these are all red in C1 and C2, which is a lot of races tomorrow, you got to get your odds. If you get your odds, and especially if you have some speed, you're going to make money.
Right.
So,
No.
any other questions? All right, let's go to race number 3. It's another weak race, and you look over at the Mom 1A, Mom 2A, Mom 3A. There's no green whatsoever. So the C1s and C2s are all red, and once again, not one single horse has a 90 or higher in C1 or C2. And in this race, you look at optimal odds, the best one is 6. The RSR is a little better for horse number 6, for example, and 4. But, overall, it's another weak race. And, see what kind of odds you get on horse number 6. The P1, P2, and P3 are good for that horse. In these kind of races, I'll just point something else out. Keep an eye on that P1 and P2 for bombers, because sometimes that'll tip you off when you got so little to go on. So another really weak race. Are there any questions? And let me go on to the next race. Now here's a good race number 4. And again, you got a lot of unknowns, and the ones you do know are weak. Main special weight race. You got, like you have horse number 8, just for example, is a TVP of 115. 10 and 11 both have 76 and 77. This is a kind of race, something like that can really be a tip-off. And it's especially when you get good odds. TVP is specifically for high odds. So when that pops, a lot of times it's 50 to 1, 60 to 1. So That's what that's useful for. It's useful in main races especially, and it's useful for bombers that don't show anything else. So, and this is another really weak race and very, very little to go on. So, unless you get good odds, that 10 horse might go off pretty low. And, horse number 7, there's one other thing that, it's helpful to keep an eye on. Is horse number 7 and horse number 8 both have yellow across, all right, for mom 1A, 2A, 3A. Now, that's pretty good and pretty useful, especially with long shots, because even though it's not green, it's solid across. And if they're rounding into form, that's the kind of pattern that gives you a little tip off they're rounding into form. So a lot of those horses will either run first or second, especially a lot of second. So if you play exactas and things like that, really keep an eye out for those that have yellow across for mom 1A, 2A, and 3A.
Yeah, that 8's got a TVP of 115 too.
Yeah, yeah. So if you get good odds, and then you really need good odds for that horse, but you might get it. And that horse is going way up in class. Look how much it's going up in class from 78. Because tomorrow's class is 100. So they're
Right.
all going. So keep an eye on first time starters. You know, these are races you can really make some money. But you got to pay attention to everything. So, is there any questions? I'm anxious to get to the
All those
Derby. Ah,
Gary, quick question. All those 999s, I'm assuming a lot of those are first time starters.
correct. Yeah, that's generally, it's either first time starters or foreign, but in this main race, it's most likely first time starters. So, and those, if they don't have, one thing I can tell you for a first time starter, if TVP is 0, they rarely win. It's not never, but they very rarely win with a 0 TVP. So, any other questions? All right. The 5th race is almost as weak, and again, if you look over like the mom 1A, 2A, and 3A, there's no color just in 3A. And if you look under mom 1, 2, that's where everybody distinguishes themselves. So they start off slow, and then towards the middle of the race, they're going to group together. And who distinguishes themselves in mom 2, 3? So you got, just not very much to go on. Horse number 3 has mom 2 equals 0. So that's pretty helpful. But then it's mom 2, 3 is weak. So, your best one in this group is horse number 9, who's got a mom 2 of 0.2. And then it's got mom 2, 3, and mom 3 equals 0. So, that might be the best bet if you get, you're going to need really huge odds on that horse. But, if these fields hold up as big as they are, tomorrow's I'm really looking forward to it because it's going to be a good betting day. Another thing in this particular race, under E, you see a lot of closers, a lot of red closers. Now, if number 15's in, it's got an E of 1. So it's also got the only yellow C1. So it's got mom 1. So if it runs, it's got mom 1A. It's got APTE. So if it's in, it might be pretty difficult. It's almost certainly going to get the lead. And there's not much speed in this race. So just remember, horse number 3 and horse number 15 are the likely early, maybe number 5. So keep an eye on the odds. And there's a lot of TVP horses in this race. But this is an allowance. It's a weaker allowance race. And TVP is helpful, but not as helpful as maiden races. Another thing in this particular race to keep an eye on is the 3 horses with double M. So that means they have a good solid move in 2/3 of the race. So that's number 1, 6, and 12. So, and 2 of those have TVP. So, it's an interesting race. It's a good chance to make money. So keep an eye on the odds. Is there any questions?
That 9 has an I of 11.
Has an M. Say that again.
The number 9, he's got an E of 11.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before, 11.
Yeah. What? Yeah, you do get it. I mean, it's a deep closer. I think I've seen them as high as 13, I think, if I can
Have you?
remember. Yeah, I think so. It's not common. You got 2 of them with 10 and one
I
with
see that.
11. Yeah, so, they don't usually do well, but it's possible. They're like the horse number 15 with an E of 1. Those horses frequently burn themselves out and quit. So, if something like that happens, if it runs a really fast first fraction, which it might, you never know, then that helps all these deep closers. But if like, say the 15 were to get out there and go like a little slow, these closers will never catch them. It's almost impossible. So a lot depends on how the race is run in a race like this. But those ones in red, are pretty much at a disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
if the 15 gets in tomorrow and he gets that lead like it looks supposed to be on a negative, and his mom 1A is a 0. Mom 2A is really not that bad compared to the field.
right.
And the mom 3A, there's only a few greens in there. So,
Right.
there's a good possibility. But obviously you need to get price. And he's got a P2 of 1. I mean,
right.
He's got pretty much everything going for him. He's got a high C2, and he's got the C1. But, you got to get prices.
Yeah, you still have to get price. And then anytime you're making a bet, you really have to get value for your money. I mean, you're wasting your time if you don't go for value. Any other questions? All right, let's move on to the next one. And this one's almost as weak. Race number 6 is almost as weak. Now, you have a couple yellow in C1, C2, but look at the RSR. Your best is 65, then a couple in the 50s. Then, these horses, based on RSR, don't really belong in the race except the 11 and 3. And then optimal odds is the same. It's this. This could be not so good a betting race. However, I'll point out that the fishing score is 10. So, for example, you want to keep an eye on number 4, because if you look, it's got mom 3 equals 0, but on number 4 in particular, but there's several in this race. So, you got to put all this together. So mom 1A, 2A, and 3A is the key to this race. And you look to where horses distinguish themselves. Well, number 2 has mom 1A at 0. But if you look across, like number 8 and number 4 have yellow, green, green, or yellow, yellow, green. Down at the bottom, like the weaker horses still, like 1 and 9, still have yellow, green, and green. So, even though their optimal odds are very high, when you put it all together, based on C1 and C2, there's nobody really strong. Nobody got green. Fishing score of 10. You got no red on mom 1A, 2A, and 3A. So the thing is that it's really, in essence, a wide open race. And, it's a weak allowance, but you do have a couple good TVPs. So, again, I mean, you just have to watch the odds because this is a race you could really, really catch one good. So, any questions on race 6?
I just have one, Gary.
What's that?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, now in your book, you say one of the most important factors, you look under P1 and you go
Right.
down, I see under there, the 4-horse has one and is number 1.
Right.
How would you interpret that?
Well, what that means, so you look at P1. If you look above P1, it's a 3.
Yes.
So that is the relative weight of that factor. So when you see they're all 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1. So they're all relatively low even. However, if horse number 4 would go off of really good odds, then that's another key. That's still the strongest factor of all of them. And a race like this, a weak allowance race, a sprint, this could have 50 or 60 factors. So, but a lot of times there's not much tipping you off other than P1 equals 1. And, and I know I've said it before, but we hit a 99-1 at Arlington a couple of years ago. The only thing it had was P1. It was a fishing score 10 race, and it had that horse was P2 equals 1. And, but that in a fishing score 10, you got to look for anything that tips you off to a long shot. A fishing score 10, you definitely don't want to be betting a horse that's 3-1, 4-1. You're wasting an opportunity. Even if the favorite wins, you're wasting an opportunity. All right.
So I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go
right,
ahead.
My only other question to that would be, even though you're showing in that 4-horse optimal odds of 37-1, I mean, if you got it at 15-1, I think that's, to me, that's in this type of race, like you said, that would be sufficient for me to bet that, to consider that horse.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I will go down to about half of optimal odds if I have other reasons to bet a horse. So if that horse was going off maybe 20-1, I would certainly bet it, if everything else looks good. I mean, optimal odds is a guide. And, when you get down like the 10-1, you really, on the 3 horses, 10-1 optimal odds, you don't really want to go down to 5-1. But on these longer prices, it's easier because there's standard deviation. So, and when you like the longer prices, it's easier to go down because it's less standard deviation. So it's not affecting it as much as the horses that are lower optimal odds. I mean, standard deviation is the same all the way through, but it has like less impact on these higher odds. So if the 4-horse was somewhere in the vicinity of 20-1 or higher, I would certainly consider betting it. And it's good. Yeah.
I jumped into the program about 10 minutes late, so I didn't hear if you said anything. Is the conditions for tomorrow still a fast track?
Yes. It will be fast
The last I heard it was.
Yeah, it will be fast and firm tomorrow.
Yeah, I believe it will.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. So.
It should be a beautiful day tomorrow, and Kentucky Derby Day. I almost always make good money on Derby Day at all tracks. You get all these people betting, and you just got to keep your eyes open. But usually it's really good.
I'll be calling you tomorrow.
Okay, I'm in California. Just don't call too early.
I won't.
All right. Let me go down to race 7. All right, and again, it's a fishing score of 10 now. This race is different. You got a lot of color under Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A. And you got a little more color, especially under C2. So it's not as weak as some of the others. But the thing here in this race, there's no speed. You got one horse, number 6 has an E of 2. And, once again, you got several horses with TV. So, if horse number 6 looks like it has any ability to steal the race, it could. And here now, the early horse is 6. However, you got several that have Mom 1, 2. So, and then you got a horse like number 10 has Mom 2 of 0. And then horse number 4 has the Mom 2, 3. It's got the Mom 1, 2 and 2, 3. So that horse, looks like it's going to be towards the back of the pack. So, which is never good. So, but, it's got the yellow and Mom 2A, and it's got a good solid green for Mom 3A. But then you got to think, like it's got minus 7.9. Horse number 9 for Mom 3A has minus 7.4. And it's got yellow from Mom 1A and 2A. So, you think that gives horse number 4 a disadvantage to number 9. And once again, you got all these horses with color in Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A. And that's always good. Any of those, that's how you hit bombers. And, and like I said, with the people tomorrow, you got so many inexperienced bettors. You really have an opportunity to make good money. So, and this race should be good. You got a couple races tomorrow that are fish score 10, including the Derby. So, I wouldn't rule out the Derby. We'll get there in a few minutes. Is there any questions? I'll go to race. Yeah? Was there a question? No?
No, I was just going to ask, the order of the
Sure.
horses are in your order, what you feel would be best.
What would be, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, the horses that you have ranked are based on the algorithm that you're
Right.
projecting. So like in race 7, like you're saying, there's bombers that could take place, but you think the 11 horse at 12-1 is a good play based on everything.
I got news for you. If that 11 horse is 12-1, it's a good bet. It's got an eye of 9. If you look at T1, T2, T3, it's all green across, which is the only horse in the race that has all 3 of them green. And then look at BL's, all green across. And again, that's the only horse in the race that's all green across. So, yeah, if that horse is 12-1, it's a bet.
Yeah, he's a very good bet at that price. Very good bet.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? All right, let's go on to number 8. All right, so now this is another pretty weak race. Now, the one thing you'll notice, like, I know it's a lot of data and you got to put it all together. This race 8 is a graded stakes with a fishing score of 5. So it's 5 because you got a couple optimal odds that are low and you got some RSRs that are okay. So, now, so that's on one side of the coin. And then on the other side of the coin, it's almost all red for C1 and C2. And there's very little color, relatively little color in Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A. And so you start to look and you're like, well, who's distinguishing itself and where? And you might say horse number 7 has, other than BL1, which isn't horrible, the rest of it's green. MT is green, BL2 is green, MS is green, BL3 is green. So, if that horse doesn't get blocked, it's even with the BL1 of 4.3, it's probably going to be towards the back of the pack. And you look at Mom 1A is 12.1. So number 7's probably going to be pretty good at the back of the pack. So now Mom 2 seems to indicate that it's not going to catch out much. So, I'm not sure how good that horse is, but the MT, BL2, MS, and BL3 is pretty decent for 7. So, so since the BLs are okay, but the Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A are not so good, that means you got to get your odds on that horse. It's going to have to be 20 to 1 or higher to warrant a bet. Any questions?
With a horse that's got that MT, that BL2, the MS, the BL3, moving right across through the race, you think that the Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A would be a little bit better.
Yeah, but that's why I can only say that they're all independent. They all do different things. So, and that particular horse is good in a sense because its E is 5. So the BLs are all very consistent with that running style. But the Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A shows it a little weak. However, the whole race is weak. So I always go to the early horse, which is horse number 2, and that's going to be a question if that horse can hold on. And you do have much more speed in this race. This race is much more speed than some of the others.
Right.
So, so that means that there's not that many horses distinguishing themselves in that. And like you look at T3 just as an example, which is like how the horses hypothetically could do. And in T3, there, you got a lot of green, even though you don't have it Mom 3A. The T scores are kind of mythical. It's what they're theoretically capable of. So you could get a lot of closing in this particular race. Any other questions?
How was the speed at Churchill today? Was the speed good?
I wasn't able to play today. So I'm in California and I've been talking to people. So I didn't play today.
I would say he was average today. I would think it's going to be somewhat fast tomorrow than it was today.
Yeah,
a lot of these weak races, you got to watch the speed. Especially if you get the odds, because they're going to be ahead of everybody else, and these horses don't have anything to come to close. So I mean, if you get the lead, you're at the right price, you got a big advantage as long as the speed's playing good.
Yeah, and Churchill, I think Churchill has a little tendency to favor speed. Those horses have a hard time closing there for the most part. So, any other questions or comments?
You got some really interesting races here tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, I'm looking so forward to tomorrow. It should be a great day.
Gary, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Gary, I got a quick question for you.
Go ahead.
What happens? So I know that scratches don't affect it, but what happens if you go to a muddy track or it goes off the turf? Do these numbers still hold?
Yeah, the numbers hold. My research indicates that on off track, the numbers don't really change that much. So originally, when I did the work, I was going to make an allowance for an off track, and then when I was working on it, it was almost no different. So the numbers don't change. The real thing is you get so many scratches that there's just not much opportunity. So when you got big full fields like this, it's golden. I mean, you live for this type of thing. Any other questions? All right, race 9. So this race, in C2, you got yellow. You got much more yellow. You got a lot of green, like in the T's and the BL1. The BL2, everybody's in green. So, this is going to be probably a very competitive race. You got a couple of the top horses have the MS and BL3. And then you go over to the Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A, and, it's not that much. So, yeah, keep an eye out. Again, this race doesn't excite me as much. It's going to be harder to figure. So, you really, if this race, you want to keep an eye on the odds, as always, but this one in particular. And, maybe one of the closers. Now, this one's pretty spread out. You got a couple early, you got several pressers, you got a couple closers. This is a much more kind of typical race. So, it should be a good race. It's a fishing score 7. This isn't one of my favorite races. Is there any questions?
Yeah, Gary. I had a little tip. A friend of mine that I play the horses with, you might know this gentleman, maybe the others might know his name. His name, Mike Pizzola. I'm sure you've heard of him.
I know Mike. I haven't
Okay.
seen him in a long time, but I know him.
All right. Well, Mike, he sent out a video. He did a little thing for the Derby himself. And my friend and I went over and I watched the video. His biggest race outside of the Derby is this race, number 9, and he likes the 8 horse.
Oh, it could be, And I mean, the 8 horse is Mom 2 equals 0. Any horse with Mom 2 equals 0 is always dangerous. So I would think, you got to get your odds. You're going to need 25, 30 to 1 on that in order to bet that horse. But yeah, did you ever see Mike do his magic?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah, well, that's a good tip. It's worth keeping an eye on.
Well, yeah, just for anybody, like I said, that was, I was waiting to see what the odds were on the horse. He did show it was going to be long, and according to his, his the way he puts his numbers out and everything, he's very high on this horse.
Well, I can see that. It's one of the few horses that has Mom 2A. It's got the best Mom 2A in the race. So, it's definitely worth a look. It's got Mom 2 equals 0. It's definitely worth a look. So, yeah, I like Mike. I haven't seen him in a long time. I used to see him more often. Is there any other questions? All right. Race number 10. Another one that's almost all red, C1 and C2. You got a couple good TVPs. Again, graded stakes, any of the higher class races, TVP is less effective. I'm not saying it's totally ineffective, but TVP is really for maiden races, week races, anything out of the ordinary. Now, again, the thing here, there's no speed, so you got one horse that shows reasonable speed, and you go to BL1, there's 4 horses with speed, and, the number 4 has a TVP of 140, which is not as critical here, but it's also got BL1. And, with the other 3, it's the weakest of the 4, but it still has some early speed. So, and then you look over under the Mom 1A, 2A, and 3A, there's almost no color. So where does everybody run? They run in right in the middle, Mom 1, 2. So, somebody's going to come out of that distinguishing themselves. It could be number 10, of course, with mom 2 equals 0. It could be number 7 has mom 2 of 0.7. So, but you see all those mom 2s are really ultimately pretty close. Like in the middle of the race, they're all going to come together. And, it looks like number 4 or 5 is going to have the best chance of distinguishing themselves late in the race. So, I would keep an eye on those two. And, this race, other than number 10, has 80 cents. Everybody's in double digits. So,
Gary,
number.
Gary, mom 1-2 is basically the middle of the race, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the momentum going into the turn.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's going to be like in the middle on the turn, you would think a whole pile of them are going to be like grouping up. Like they're going to be kind of spread out early in the race. Like by the time they're starting to go into the turn, they should be somewhat spread out. And then there should be several that start to converge on that turn. And then it's a question of, traffic is always an issue. And if things are equal, number 4 and 5 are the two that should come out of it. Number 10 probably will have to lead, but, it's possible, there's a few of them that possibly will catch them. So, and number 10, is obviously going to be a big favorite. So, and I'll never bet a favorite. If I lose. I'm not betting a favorite.
No.
But any other questions?
Yes, now you're sounding like Mike.
That's the only way you make money is betting value.
That's right, exactly. He said he preaches just for anybody. Again, he just preaches that and preaches that. Like you said, I'd rather lose money than bet a favorite.
Well, that's me. I agree with him 100%. So, yeah. I mean, if you play horses, the only way you're going to survive long term is going for value. You bet favorites, you just can't survive unless you just keep putting money in. All right,
Yeah, I'll tell you
number.
that 5 has a good shot tomorrow in there at Bryce.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 5 is the logical horse to close if it's not too far back, and it depends on traffic.
Yeah.
All right, race number 11. Now, this one I found a little interesting with number 6. So number 6 has mom 2 equals 0 and mom 3 equals 0, and it's a double M horse. So the thing is, he's a deep closer. So, but this is the kind of horse, it's got mom 2, mom 3 equals 0. Then it's got mom 2A and mom 3A in green. So, and then you never know. And, sometimes I'll mention a horse to somebody, the horse doesn't run. But this horse should be a factor in this race tomorrow. The morning line's 5-1, optimal odds is 3-1. RSR is 69, which is only a little below 73. So, I'm definitely going to be looking at the 6 horse tomorrow in this race. It's a deep
What odds would
closer.
you be looking at?
What's that?
I said, what odds would you be looking to get on that horse?
I hate to bet horses less than 5-1. So, I'll go down to 9-2. But I just can't bet horses much below. I don't get $11 or $12. It's not. You just can't make money. You can't survive.
Sometimes you bet a horse at 5-1, and then they go in the gate and they crush the horse. The gate opens and the horse goes off 3-1.
Yeah, I had one last week. I think if I remember, it was 7-1 or 8-1, and they're running around. The next thing I know is 8-5.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can do. You know, a lot of times all the money comes in after the gate, you know, all the satellite money, and that happens. I've had that plenty. Yeah, there's nothing you can do, but at least you tried. All right. Anything else on race 11? All right, let's go to 12. All right, so 12. You know, this is a little bit better race. You got 4 horses that have optimal odds, at least are in yellow. Nobody's real strong from optimal odds. Again, you got a couple DVPs. And in this race, if you look where most of the horses have an ability to distinguish themselves is late in the race. So you see the mom 3As, a lot of green. Now, I'm just going to remind you, like horse number 8 uh, has the 2 green. You know, so that horse can just go wire to wire. You know, you look over, it's the only horse in the race that has an E of 2. And then there's no 1s or 3s, so it's the only early speed in the race. The race is, you know, not very strong from a C1, C2 perspective. So that horse, if you look at mom 1, it's the 0. There isn't a lot of speed in this race. You know, they're going to have to come and get them. So now, if that horse, number 8, is able to moderate the pace, there's no way they'll beat them. Now, the question becomes, what will go off? My optimal odds is 4.5, and morning line's 1.8, so that horse might just, you know, be the favorite. So, although you never know, you just, you know, you got to wait and see how everything plays out. But this is one of those races. Horse number 10, for example, is all yellow across. Those are the sleepers that people, you know, like when they're reading the racing form or whatever they're using, this is the kind of horse that frequently winds up a sleeper going off at 15, 20. You never know. And
What
they're
horse is that, Gary?
10 and
Yeah, the
5.
10.
You know,
Yes.
they're both sleepers. Horse number 7 could, you know, horse number 7 could be a sleeper, and it's mom 1A is yellow, mom 2A is yellow, then 3A is green. And, you know, a lot of times these horses get in the money. And, you know, really frequently they're good prices. So it's just something to keep in mind. You know, you know, it can help you a lot. You know, that horse number 10 has C2 of 99. It's the only horse in the race with green. So, any questions?
What does a yellow stand for? Just average?
Well, no. Green is good, yellow is helpful, and red is hurtful. So, green doesn't mean a horse is going to win, and red doesn't mean it's going to lose, but it's to give you a flavor. You know, like if you're thinking of whether or not to bet, that'll help you, like, clarify it for you. All right. That's 12. So 13.
Gary,
So, yeah,
you're from New Jersey, correct?
yes.
Okay, you were just to get back on a question you said before about many times, and it's happened to me, and I'm sure of others. You know, you've got a horse, he goes into the gate, and then the gate opens up a couple of 20 yards or so down, you get a different odds. Someone told me when you bet in the state of Jersey, you can get your bet in till the first quarter of that race. Do you know that to be true?
Never.
No,
That's not true.
yeah, I never heard that.
That's not true.
Never seen that.
You know, they have. There's
Yeah, what's
something. There's something in Jersey called the exchange. Like I'm not quite sure how it works. I never really looked into it, but
It's the
maybe
bet fair, I think.
something like that. I'm not real sure.
Yeah, you could bet
But
during the race as the race is going.
Yeah. So I never looked into it, but I think the odds change. I think it's a separate pool, but I have enough to do with what I do. You know, and I'm doing good.
Yeah.
You know, I'm quite happy the way things are going. Race 13. So, and it's again, this one's a little stronger than some of the others. And there is a little bit of early speed. You got that 10 horse in this race with a 1 for E. So, and if you look across, that horse possibly could go wire to wire. I say that because of the T. There's several horses that have T green across, but that horse with a 1 is probably going to have the ability to get the lead. And the mom 1 is 0. So, and mom 1A 0. So I'm thinking the 10 is very likely going to have the lead in this race. So, it's a possibility. So I'm going to look very carefully at the odds. And, and again, if they go fast, then the horse probably will really quit bad. So, when you got a lot of green, like MT, BL2 is almost all green. MS is a lot of green. BL3 is all green. So, and if you look at the mom 1-2, it's almost all green out other than the 10. So, chances are the 10 will quit, but you never know for sure. So the 1s do not win very often, I'll just tell you.
Yeah, their percentage is low, the 1, right? E1
Yeah,
is pretty low percentage, right?
right. Yeah, E1, they almost always get the lead, but they almost always quit. So they do win once in a while, but not very often. All right, you ready for the Derby?
Ready.
All right, here's the Derby. So, the interesting thing when I first saw it, the interesting thing is optimal odds is almost all red. In other words, if you look at it from that perspective and you look at it from the C1, the horses are weak. It's a weak race. So, like I meant, the competition's not very good. But you look at fishing score of 10. So now I'll tell you why it's a fishing score of 10. There's 2 reasons. Optimal odds, there's only 1 horse very low, but RSR, the favorite, 17, has RSR of 65, which is not really that strong. However, everybody else is 15 pounds. So that's weak. So the RSRs in this race are really weak. So, that opens it up for 17 to win, walking away. And 17, has mod 3 equals 0. But the thing is, there's other horses, towards the top, like 16 and 18, towards the top that, have a possibility of beating it. When you look at mom 1A, 2A, and 3A, like 16 is right there, yellow, yellow, green, and 18, could be a pretty good price, has all yellow. 10 has yellow, yellow, green. So 15, number 2 has mom 2A and 3A in green. So, from the mom area, mom 2As and 3As, 13's yellow across. So, it's a possibility that 17 will be beat. So, I don't want to go out and say it will because I know it's going to be a big favorite. But, and it's got C1 and C2 is both green. So, it's the only horse in the race that, has that good. But then, like 16 and 18, could be really coming to their peak. And even 10, the first several, 10, 15, and 2 could really be rounding into form.
I want to say the 2.
Yeah, even the 2. I mean, I know it's got to be a bomber, but if you look across, who's got mom 2 and mom 3? Is it 2?
Yeah.
you can't overlook that stuff.
He finished
So-
third to him twice.
Yeah. So, and it's got green, in Mom 2A and 3A. That horse is probably going to be a pretty good bomber tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, you don't rule anything out because they still got to run the race.
But we got to try to beat the favorite.
Well, 18 should get the lead. You would think 18 will get the lead most likely.
But he's going to need
And,
more.
yeah. I meant there's not very much speed in this race. 18's got speed and 15. And 4 might have enough speed to get up there early.
Yeah.
So, you got to keep an eye on the odds. And, if 17 wins, it wins. But it's a fishing score 10. And you know what? You got to bet some odds.
Yep.
So, and if you look at it, the middle of the race, is the strongest. Mom 1, 2 is the strongest part of the race. But number 2's got Mom 2 equals 0 and Mom 3 equals 0.
Yeah.
So, you know what? You can't rule that horse out.
That's my horse.
Oh, okay.
Max player.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big field. If everybody goes, it all depends. But a lot of weak horses are not going to factor into the race. So if you can get one of them one better E that shows something, you could make some money tomorrow.
I just
Is
think
there
this
any-
race, Gary, we've heard that saying, if it's too good to be true, it is. I've never seen a race, a big race, with a field like this so weak that I just don't think that horse is going to win. I think it's a setup. I really do.
It could be.
Yeah, I mean, the optimal odds here,
I mean,
the optimal odds are bad.
there's going to be so much money on this horse. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't
Well, you
wanna
might
use
put
the-
it in. You might put him in second, and everybody's going to bet him because he won some of the other races so easy.
Sure.
Let's hopefully he runs on 3 legs.
Yeah, that's right. So, is there any other questions or anything else?
I just have one last question. I know you said previous seminars, did you finish up your book yet? You revised it? Is that
Oh, the handbook?
completed? Pardon?
No, I'm
Yeah, the
still
handbook.
working on it.
Okay.
I did the one tutorial that I posted. I'm trying to finish the second one, and I'm working on the handbook. So I'm here in California this weekend. Tomorrow I'm flying, but Sunday I'm going to be working on everything, trying to catch it up, get things done. So, is there anything else? I'm doing my best to get it all done and help. All right. Well, good luck to everybody tomorrow. Thank you for participating. I'll post this tomorrow as soon as I get it available.
Okay, Gary.
Thank
Good luck, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Super.
Have fun.